News Now is brought to you by the Bank of Guam, the People's Bank, Docomo Pacific, island-wide, worldwide. The choice is clear. Micronesia Renewable Energy. Go solar for zero money down. And Colgate Optic White. Whiter teeth in 1 week. From broadcast to broadband. News you can trust. From the Pacific News Center in Hagåtña, Guam. And broadcasting live in Saipan. Here's Clint Rigel and Janella Carrera. PNC Sports with Blake Watson and Rebecca Kim with weather. With your News Now.
Good evening. It's Wednesday, October the 8th, and you're watching PNC's News Now. I'm Janella Carrera.
And I'm Clint Rigel. Half a day, and thanks for tuning in. Topping your news tonight, more high school fights have surfaced on the web. While the kids are in school uniforms, they are not fighting on school grounds. Nevertheless, DOE Deputy Superintendent Rob Millay says that they are working on ways to deter this behavior.
PNC has obtained 2 more high school fight videos. In one, kids can be seen wearing GW uniforms, and they're fighting right in front of the Orange Guam Federation of Teachers building. In the video, one kid gets dropped with a right hand, but he quickly scrambles to his feet and asks to fight some more. The other video shows kids in JFK uniforms fighting on the rooftop parking lot of Kmart. At one point, one of the kids even says he can't continue to fight because he hurt his fist. Onlookers reply, telling him to just kick his opponent instead.
So kick then.
The fight then continues for quite some time, with both kids exchanging some really hard blows. It eventually ends with the two shaking hands. DOE Deputy Superintendent Rob Millay says they are aware of this growing trend.
It's completely unacceptable behavior by the people who are participating in the fights, and not only that, the people who are surrounding, watching and videoing and putting it up on the social media. It's just unacceptable behavior.
Millay says they're working on ways to curb this behavior.
We got all of our high school principals together to see what we're looking at in a bigger picture. From there, we're reaching out to the Guam Police Department, who are always good partners with the Department of Education, and we're also going to be reaching out to the mixed martial art community.
They're hoping some high-profile mixed martial artists will be able to speak to the students about the dangers of fighting in the street.
Well, first of all, to the students that are participating in the fighting, please think twice before you get involved with this, because something really bad could happen to any one of the participants, and you really don't want to really don't want to be a part of that. You know, you don't want to be the person who ends up in jail, the person who ends up in the hospital, the person who ends up in the cemetery. But also to parents out there, you know, if your children are coming home and you see that they've been in what might appear to have been a fight, question them, find out what's going on.
Millay says they're asking any parents who might know who is involved in any of these fights to contact school officials or contact GPD.
Billed as the mastermind behind the MGM illegal gambling scheme, Jimmy Shea has been sentenced to 2 years in prison and ordered to pay more than $400,000 in forfeiture. 3 other defendants in the case were also sentenced in district court. Jimmy Shea and Pauline Perez were sentenced in federal court this morning for the underground illegal gambling scheme they ran at the MGM Spa in Tamuning from January 2006 to December 2010. Both had entered plea deals. Perez was sentenced to 1 year probation. Her attorney, Mike Phillips.
And so, you know, she made a mistake and she's gotten past it. And I think the sentence of 1 year probation is very fair.
Labeled as the mastermind by the prosecution, Shea received the heftiest sentence so far of 2 years, plus a forfeiture of more than $400,000 that was laundered through the gambling business. The gambling scheme offered games of chance like poker and baccarat and took a percentage of the winnings. His defense attorney, Howard Trapp, fiercely asked for a lesser sentence, however, pointing out that Shea had been nothing but cooperative with the court. And even when he was allowed to travel, he had always come back, whereas another defendant, Wycam Ho, has not yet returned to Guam after he was allowed to travel without posting bond to Taiwan. Ho's culpability is just as heavy in this case, says Trapp, and the fact that he's not present for sentencing means Shea has the undue burden of taking the fall for him. Shea says Trapp shares that loss. Shea was facing a sentencing range of 18 to 24 months. Trapp had asked Chief Judge Francis Tydinko Gatewood for a variance and sentenced Shea to probation instead. The court owes him that, he pointed out. He says Shea has learned his lesson, and to think that he'd return to the gambling business if he doesn't serve time is, quote, ridiculous. Assistant U.S. Attorney Belinda Alcantara, however, argued that illegal gambling and money laundering are serious crimes and harmful to the Guam economy. She noted that it targeted a particularly vulnerable part of the community and affects crime rates. Those convicted of economic crimes like gambling should not be able to avoid incarceration, she argued.
I think from the little I know, but the lot that I've seen in this case, I think everybody's learned their lesson.
As of this afternoon, the U.S. Attorney's Office says William Perez and Powell's sentencing hearing was still ongoing.
Governor Eddie Calvo has dispatched a fiscal management team over to the Guam Memorial Hospital amid growing concerns over some financial troubles there. The governor says his office has been working on giving the island's only civilian hospital more resources in terms of funding. But with a growing population of those who cannot afford insurance or are not eligible for Medicaid and MIP, the hospital's financial liability has also grown, which is why he says he's now sending a fiscal team to help.
As far as I'm concerned, their CFO's still there, and good for him. And he's been doing an admirable job. But that doesn't mean that this administration shouldn't be there to help them as well. I'd like to have Benita work with the board and with the management and our and I'm not only talking about Benita, by the way. I'm talking about the rest of our fiscal team. How we can better coordinate and communicate and reconcile accounts.
Governor Calvo emphasized that sending a fiscal team to GMH is, quote, not an indictment on the quality of the hospital's management team.
The Port Authority of Guam is down to 2 cranes right now, and according to Port GM Joanne Brown, they were down to 1 crane briefly last night. Brown says Gantry 6 went down last night for a few hours due to excessive moisture from all the heavy rain that Typhoon Vongfang brought. Once they dried out the equipment, they were able to get Gantry 6 back online today. Gantry 4 and 6 are the only cranes running right now, as Gantry 5 and Gantry 3 are down for repairs. Gantry 5 is having its wire ropes replaced, and Brown says this should be done by the end of this weekend or sooner. Gantry 3 is down for regularly scheduled maintenance. Gantry 2 has been retired, and the port's mobile crane is also down and set for retirement as well. Brown says now that 2 cranes are up and running, they are working on catching up with the backlog that occurred after Vongfang postponed the repairs in Gantry 5 and caused water damage to Gantry 6.
The new schedule for public transportation on island is getting a lot of feedback. Some say it doesn't make any sense and they are left confused, while others are more optimistic and say it's changed for the better. PNC's Rizal Romanes has more in this report.
It's confusing, a waste of time, and just not making any sense. That's what some of the mass transit riders are calling the change of schedule. One of them is John Cruz, who left his house this morning to pick up his medication and was left stranded at Paseo for more than 4 hours, waiting to catch a ride back to Inarajan. Others, on the other hand, are happy because it means more hours and more routes. Gabriel Kichicho is thankful that he doesn't have to walk too far for bus stops now.
It's good, because the places I need to go to, I don't have to walk from where the other transit bus drops me off.
So you had no problems looking for the time or anything?
No, as long as I could get to the place where I'm going and I don't have to walk far, that's fine with me.
He does have one concern, though, he tells PNC.
I only pay 35 cents because of my disability, and $1 for me is still good. But the other riders feel sorry for. Figured if they raise up the rate, most of them would not be on the bus.
One of the drivers who wanted to be left anonymous says since the new schedule started, many riders have been complaining and wishing it was better organized. But he's optimistic and says he's sure with time, everything will work out for the best. Rizal Romanes, PNC News.
We should point out that the new schedule is just a test run, and it will last until November the 30th.
All right, well, stay tuned. Coming up next on News Now. It's been 3 years, but the FBI says they're still searching for the missing Luke sisters in Saipan.
And what should the Tianjin High mascot be? We'll tell you the choices when News Now continues on PNC after this.